So today I'm going to be talking to all of my brides who are about 2 to 3 months out from their wedding day. There's probably a lot going on, lots of moving pieces, and then also like freaking out because the day is so close. But I'm here to tell you that it's going to be great, it's going to be wonderful, and just breathe. If you are new around here, my name is Dakota and I'm a senior portrait and wedding photographer in Wilmington, North Carolina. And I love making these videos so that way I can help brides like you feel stress-free on your wedding day and feel like you have a really good idea of everything that's going on. So if you are a few weeks out from your wedding day, then it is time to make the timeline. I will preface this and say that I am coming from the perspective of a photographer. If you do have a coordinator or a planner, then they will likely take charge of this task, but it is super important that your photographer, your DJ, or whoever's providing your entertainment and your coordinator are all involved in the process before your timeline gets its final stamp of approval. So when it comes to timelines, the most important thing to remember is that you need to prioritize and make this one of the most important parts of your day, other than marrying the love of your life. So when you're getting ready to create your timeline and your photographer and coordinators are reaching out, it's really important for you to take the time to sit down and write out all of the things that are super important to you, maybe like a list of 3 to 5 top priorities of the day. This can be that you want to have multiple toasts at the reception, or you want to prioritize your bride and groom portraits and have plenty of time after the ceremony for that. Maybe you've planned a special dance with your grandpa in addition to dancing with your dad, or that you actually want to be able to attend your cocktail hour with your guests. This is totally up to you, whatever you think is super important and is going to make your day great, but it's really important that you understand what those things are and that the people building and helping with your timeline also know what those things are. This way, the timeline can be worked around that we're making sure that we're prioritizing those, and that if something goes crazy or we have to shift things up, that those are the things that get the top priority. As a general rule, the day is going to start with you getting ready, imagine that, and all of your details. When your photographer asks you for your details or says that they want to start with details, they are talking about your dress, shoes, rings, invitation suites, perfume, jewelry, all of those tiny little things that you definitely want documented from your day but might get lost in all of the big events later. This usually happens while you're finishing up getting ready so that way we can bounce back and forth between those detail shots and then you hanging out with your bridesmaids. And then when you're mostly ready, because nobody likes pictures without makeup on, then we'll come in and get all of the pictures of you actually getting into your dress. It is important for you to schedule enough time with your hair and makeup artist to be completely ready when you're supposed to be ready on your timeline, because if we're still waiting, then that's going to obviously throw off the timeline for the rest of the day. The bigger your bridal party is, the longer it's going to take for everybody to get wrapped up and then also get dressed and get moving. So my rule of thumb is to always plan for more time than you need, because then you'll just have more time for mimosas. Another thing to keep in mind when it comes to the getting ready portion of the day is also making sure that your family members or anybody who's really special to you that's going to be a part of this is also following the timeline and getting ready at the same time. And I love when my brides' moms and grandmas come in to help them get into the dress, but obviously they can't do that if they're still trying to frantically get their hair and makeup done. So once you're in your dress, most of my brides opt to do a daddy-daughter first look, which I think is so sweet and I love them so much. I like to schedule plenty of time for moments like these so that way you can fully take everything in. He can tell you how beautiful you are and you guys won't feel rushed to head to the next thing. But again, we can't have a first look unless dad is fully dressed and ready, so make sure that he is also fully aware of the timeline and everything that's going to be happening, since he probably won't be getting ready with you guys. So usually after your dad takes in all of your gorgeousness, then we will start with bridesmaids photos, so all of those typical pictures with your girls, any pictures with individual family members that you want to have with just you, and then also a few with just you by yourself, so that way we can have plenty of beautiful bridal portraits. Which this is super important if you did not have a bridal session in addition to your wedding day, because we want plenty of pictures of you in that dress, girl. So everything that we just talked about takes around 1.5 hours to 2 hours, from details to you getting in your dress, first looks, bridesmaids, and any family pictures. So once we are done with all of the girls, we will typically move on to the groomsmen, who essentially go through the same process. We'll get a few detail shots, some of your groom getting ready, and then of course a few of him by himself. Then we'll add in his family and then all of his groomsmen. This usually takes a little less time than it does for the girls, I'm sure, as you can imagine, so I usually put in around 40 to 50 minutes to spend with the guys, if everyone is on time and cooperating. Now, the biggest change to your timeline is if you decide to do a first look. I won't spend too much time talking about a first look because I could go on and on about how much I love them, but I did want to bring it up because they do have a huge effect on your timeline. So if you do decide to do a first look, then we'll start a little bit earlier in the day and schedule in that private moment between the two of you guys, and then we'll also be able to do a ton of pictures before the ceremony. Just like with your daddy-daughter first look, we would want to schedule plenty of time for you guys to see each other and take everything that's happening in, and then be able to get a few bride and groom portraits of you afterwards. Which that's one of the best parts because you essentially get double the amount of portraits if you decide to do a first look, because we'll do some before the ceremony and then again some after the ceremony when it's sunset time. So once the first look happens and you guys have seen each other, that's when we would do the whole bridal party, knock them out before the ceremony, and then if you do have your family there and we're able to get pictures with them before the ceremony, then we'll do those as well. This means that you're essentially done with all of your photos before the ceremony even happens, and then when it's over, you guys can go straight to your cocktail hour and start to party with the rest of your guests. For my brides who do want to prioritize their cocktail hour and have done a first look for that, it's been super fun for them because then after the ceremony, they don't have to stress about anything else that's happening. They get to just go to the reception and have fun. Either way, first look or not, we're going to make sure that you, the bride, are tucked away with plenty of time before guests start arriving so that way you can still have your grand entrance during the ceremony. Plus, your photographers and videographers use this time before the ceremony when you're tucked away and we're not taking pictures of anybody in the bridal party to get photos of the ceremony space and the reception space before people start to arrive. So then the ceremony will happen, and if we weren't able to get family photos before the ceremony, then we will move straight into family formals. So this is one of the areas of the day where, like I said, it's really important to understand where your priorities are, because typically this time only takes around 10 to 15 minutes, but it has the potential to get really out of hand. My goal as a photographer, and I'm sure coordinators and planners would say the same thing, is to use that time during your cocktail hour to get all of the photos that we need, but then also not make it so long that your guests are feeling like restless and wondering where you're at. So in order to do that, I recommend having around 10 different family groupings and no more than that, because that lets us get through those really quickly, get all of the most important family members that we need, and then move on to the other photos that we need to get without taking up too much time. So after we get those family photos, we'll move into the bridal party photos. Again, if we weren't able to get them before the ceremony, this usually takes around 15 minutes. If everybody's cooperating, we'll get all of the group shots that we need, and then we can release them to go to the cocktail hour and reception. Then we're moving on to the most important part of the day, the newlywed portraits. I know that everyone has their own opinions about what they want to prioritize on their wedding day, but I think that the bride and groom portraits are some of the most important photos that you're going to take, because they're the ones that you're going to hang up in the house, you're going to show your kids, that you're probably going to be posting on Instagram for weeks and months to come. So it is important for you to prioritize this time, because you're probably going to be a little tired once you've done the ceremony, family pictures, and bridal party photos. But I promise you it's so worth it, and the more time that you can give me for portraits, the better. So that's essentially the last of like the formal type photos of the day. And when we move into the reception, most of the time I, as a photographer, throw everything over to the coordinator and the DJ, because they're the experts at making parties fun and memorable and keeping things rolling. So I usually trust anything and everything that they have to say about the flow of a party. With your reception, you have a ton of flexibility in the order that you want to do things. So I would talk to me, your photographer, or if you want to talk to your coordinator and DJ about what their thoughts are on the order of events. For example, I usually suggest to do the cake cutting and toast during the end of the meal when all of your guests are wrapping up, because that allows guests to actually enjoy all of the cake and desserts that you've brought, and also listen to the toast before they head on to the dance floor. So you'll also want to make sure that you have plenty of time for all of your special dances. Like I said, if you're going to do more than just the father-daughter and mother-son dance, you'll want to make sure that you have time for that. And then if there's anything else that's super important to you to happen during the reception, you'll want to make sure that you let the people who are creating your timeline know that, so that way we can get all of those things done within the time that we'll be there. I will also just add this, that if someone is going to surprise you with something, I know it's a surprise, so you're not going to know that when you're building your timeline, but if you just want to maybe put the word out there that they should reach out to the coordinator and the photographer to let them know that something's going to happen before the day of, or at least super earlier in the day, so that that way we can rearrange things as needed and then be prepared for when the moment's going to happen. So I know that I just threw a lot at you, and it's a lot to think about when you're trying to plan out your timeline, but the best part is that you don't have to do this by yourself, and you've hired the best people in the biz to make sure that everything goes off without a hitch. So for my couples, I usually send out a questionnaire around 1 to 2 months before the wedding, so that that way I can get all of the information from them and then create a drafted timeline based on their priorities. So then we take that drafted timeline and we review it on a call, go through each stage of the day, answer any and all questions, and then on the big day, you have nothing to worry about except for making sure that everyone stays on time. So if you do have multiple people helping you with your timeline and giving their input, it is super important just to make sure that everyone is able to look at it before the day. So if something got missed, it can get added in there. But honestly, more eyes the better, and the more people that are going to enforce the timeline, the better. To all of my brides who are going to become wives within the next couple of months, I'm super excited for you. If you have any questions about building your timeline, I would definitely reach out to your coordinator or your photographer to ask them what they think. And then of course, I am here and willing to give you any of my thoughts when it comes to timelines and preparing for the big day. If you liked this video and you thought it was helpful, then I would love it if you would give it a thumbs up. And if you want to see more video content from me about preparing for your wedding day or just insights from a wedding photographer, then you can subscribe. All right, good luck. Bye guys.